Alrighty, so today we're going to be looking at face shaping products. This is probably the most interesting and the most confusing of all the different products you can use on your face. Definitely a popular topic at the moment. While I find this to be probably the least necessary step, you certainly don't have to do any of these things. Just foundation and mascara and a bit of eyeshadow and lipstick is enough by all means. However, I have found that these small steps, while they may seem superfluous, they actually make a big difference to your look. And just by adding one or two of these things to your makeup routine, even if that bypasses eyeshadow and all those extra things, it can make your look so much better. So I'm going to debunk some of the mystery about it and go through all the different products for face shaping and what they're for and how to use them. So first I'll start off with probably the most familiar product, and that is blush. I've only brought one with me because we should all know what a blush is by now. This one's just by Topshop. So the point of a blush is to add some colour to your face. So foundation alone, while it can even the skin tone and make you look a bit more fresh, it can leave your skin looking a bit flat and with no colour. Or you can look a little bit lifeless. I know if I just have a full face of makeup with no blush or contour or anything on my cheeks, I do look a bit sick because I need that extra colour back into my face to make myself look a bit more natural. So blush you can certainly do on its own. If I'm in a hurry, I will use blush on its own and kind of use it as a contour as well. So I'll use it along the cheekbone. So one, it not only adds some life to my face, but it also defines that cheekbone a little bit to add some shape to my face. Next, I think I'll start with contours because that's probably the most talked about. The point of a contour is to create shadow to your face pretty much. So it's accentuating the shadows that would naturally fall on your face caused by your own shape, I suppose. So if you had very prominent cheekbones, if you had light coming down on you, you would naturally have a shadow underneath because these come out so much. So it's about either emphasizing those natural shadows that would occur on your face, or it's about creating those shadows so that you can create a face shape that you don't actually have. So it's a little bit of deception there as well. The art of contouring is a very powerful gift because, like I said, you can make your face look however you want it to look without doing any kind of plastic surgery. So the most common way, of course, is along the cheekbones, like I've said already. So that's just putting the dark shade just under where your cheekbone is or where you would want your cheekbone to be, and that way it just makes your cheekbones stand out a bit more or seem higher than they actually are. But that's not the only way to use contour. There's also nose contouring, so that's just using a small brush and then contouring around your nose to create the shape that you want. So you can do that either to correct any crooked or not symmetrical areas. Like if you find that you have a very crooked nose, maybe in the bridge, maybe you've broken it at some point, you can use contouring just to even it up a little bit so that it looks a bit more symmetrical. Also, a lot of people use it to make their nose appear thinner, so kind of like getting a nose job but just with some powder. Something that I use a lot is eye contouring. Because I have hooded lids, I want my eyes to look a bit more open and to push this extra lid space back. And so I do that just by contouring this hood area here, adding some shadow onto there, and that makes my eyes appear more open. So this also works for your jawline or maybe your double chin. So for example, I have a very square jawline, so on days that I want my jawline to seem a bit more narrow and not so wide, I would put contour just along these edges here so that they seem further back. And if you did have a double chin, you'd contour the crap out of that. By making that appear darker, then someone's eyes are then attracted to the brighter parts of your face. So again, the same kind of works for your hairline as well. It's It's all about putting shadows around the places that you don't want to see or that you want to seem thinner. I hope I've done that enough justice in explaining that it's about shaping, it's about creating shadows, it's about bringing less attention to some areas on your face, and the key here is to use a tone that suits your skin color. So for me, most contour shades won't work because they tend to be a more warm toned color, which because I'm so fair, it ends up looking too orange on my skin or yellow. So I have to look for ones which are cool toned, and so they're, instead of being more on the orange side, they look a little bit more grey, like definitely brown, but with a grey kind of undertone as opposed to orange. In addition to that, you also want it to be a shade that's not too much darker than your own skin tone. So I would say probably about 2 shades darker than your actual skin. If it's too much darker than then, it ends up looking really harsh, really fake, and like a drag queen, really, to be honest, and that's not flattering at all. And if you use something too close, then you don't really notice it, and it does make a difference, but it's so slight that it's not really worth doing. So you want something about 2 to 3 shades darker than your actual skin tone, and something that matches your undertones. So either if you're warm, get something with orange undertones, or if you're cool tone, get something with pink undertones or grey undertones. I'm neutral, so I sit in the middle, but I tend to go more towards the cool side to avoid the risk of looking like an Oompa Loompa. And I'll show you some examples of some little kits I have here later about comparing the different kind of shades, so hopefully that makes more sense. Highlighting is like the opposite effect of contouring. So in contouring, you're trying to create shadows and darker areas and to hide certain places. Whereas with highlighting, you want to brighten areas, draw attention to them, and make them seem more forward. So shadows and contouring will make things appear further back on your face, whereas highlighters will make things appear more out the front of your face. So the main area that people will use their highlighters are along the top of the cheekbone. So you have the contour underneath to make it appear further in, and then you have the highlighter on top to make it appear higher and more prominent on your face. Another popular area for highlighters is on the top lip here, and again that's just to make that top lip seem like it comes out more and that it's more plump. Another area is up along this area of the forehead, because it actually narrows the forehead by bringing attention to this area as opposed to the very edge of the head. So you'd put some contour around here if you wanted to soften those edges, if you found you had a very large forehead, and then the highlight you'd put along here so that when people look at your face, they're drawn straight to this little section here where all the highlight is. People also use highlight along their brow bone so that their brows appear higher and more prominent. This can make your eyes look more open depending on your eye shape. For me, I can't do too much of that because it just makes my hooded eyes look heavier and bigger than what they really are. So I keep it very, very thin along here, but for most eye shapes, it will make your eyes appear more open. So I'll show some examples of different contours and highlighters that I have. I don't have many, but I'll show you what I do have. So I've got the Smashbox Shape Matters palette here. Not sure about the best way to show you. So if you look at this section here in the middle, these are all the face shaping ones. Actually, I'll just use this. You can see at the top here, this shade right here is a very grey undertoned contour, whereas this one's very orange undertone. This looks completely orange on me and I can't wear it at all unless I do it very softly. This is what I was talking about before, where if you've got darker skin or more olive skin, this will look really nice on you. But if you've got fairer skin, then you have to go for one that's more this kind of tone. And down here we've got 2 different highlights. This one is an actual highlighter, so it's got a lot of shimmer in it. When you put it on your face, it reflects a lot of light and makes it shine as you move in the light. Whereas this one here is a matte highlight, so it's not really a shimmer. This just brightens certain areas, so like under the under eyes here, a lot of people will put a shade lighter than their skin tone underneath their eyes, either with concealer or powder like this, to make that whole area seem more forward and flat, to make the cheekbones seem bigger and more prominent. And another kit I have is the Australis one, which I did a video on recently. So this one's got 3 shades. So I'll start over here. So we've got a contour shade here. This is another grey tone one, which is why I like it so much. It's a nice cool tone. It doesn't look too orange or muddy on my skin. This here is a very subtle highlight. It looks a bit pink in the pan, but it's actually a very natural highlight on the skin. Although this would suit fairer skin tones. If you've got anywhere near medium skin or darker, this would look really ashy and too pink on your skin. And this one here is a highlighting powder similar to the one in the Smashbox palette, where it's not shimmery at all, it's all matte. It just brightens the skin or wherever you place it. It doesn't have to be here, it can be anywhere. But the yellow has a brightening effect against the skin. Similarly to the contours, there's a lot of different shades with highlighters and different intensities. So you can get some that are very subtle, they've only got a slight sheen to them, and you have other ones which are very bold, very, not glittery, just they catch a lot of light, they're very reflective, and they will stand out on your face. And so you can get tones anywhere from a light pink to light purples to golds or whites. You just need to pick one that suits your skin tone the best. I won't go into all of that here. I might do a blog article on that later if you want more details. But there's certainly plenty of information out there on the internet already if you want to do some research. But something to be mindful of is the shade and the undertone as well with those. And the last product I want to mention is bronzers. I've got one here by Topshop. So the point of a bronzer is, again, it adds some shape to the face. So it's similar to a contour in that it's a darker tone and it's kind of pushing things back, but it's less intense and it doesn't just add shade, but it also adds warmth. So like I said at the start, when you just put on your foundation and maybe some eye makeup and some lips, your face can look very blank, very flat, and you can look a little bit sick. So another way to add some colour and some life back to your face is with bronzer, because they're usually quite warm tone. They do have a little bit of orange in them to make you look sun-kissed, like you've been in the sun, you look like you've got this healthy glow. Really helpful in winter when you haven't been getting any sun and you don't want to get too sickly pale. By adding this to anywhere that the light would touch. So if you think about if you spend a week at the beach, all the places on your face would get a bit burnt or a little bit tan. So usually up on your forehead here and then across your cheeks, that's the places that you'd add this to add some warmth and to add just a little bit more colour and life to your face. Similarly to blush, you can use this on its own without contouring or highlighting, and use this alone as your face shaper. Just by putting it around like a number 3 across your forehead, down your cheekbone and then down your jaw. That will add some definition and shape to your whole face, as well as adding some colour. And again with these, it's all about undertones, so it's really hard for me to find a bronzer that isn't completely orange. I find contours is not so bad. There's more and more cool tone ones out there, but bronzers I still struggle with. Most of them are very orange or very shimmery, which I don't really like. I like these matte ones, which, I mean, they need to have a little bit of orange in them to give you some warmth, but they need to be light enough for my skin so I don't look like I've rolled in Doritos, pretty much. So, that being said, that's all the different products. So it's up to you how you want to use them. You can use them on their own, or you can use a combination of some or all of them together. You could go all out and use the bronzer, the contour, the highlighter, and the blush if you want to. And that's cool, it looks good, they all add something different, but you don't need to. So some days I'll just use the bronzer just for some warmth and some shape. Sometimes I'll just use the blush just across here for some colour and a little bit more shape. And same goes for the rest. Sometimes I'll do a different combination, so sometimes I'll do a bit of contour and then a bit of blush and that's it. Sometimes I'll only use highlighters, you know, because I want more of a natural glow type of look, so I'll just put the foundation on and then just put highlighters where I want. So it's totally up to you. Do trial and error. It depends on where you're going, what you're doing, how long you're going to be out for, what you're wearing as well. Like, it's got to suit. If your face is fully chiseled and like completely glam shaped out and you've got like a casual sundress and you just go into a picnic, it might seem a little bit off. You might look a bit drag queeny. So remember to be tactful with how you use it. One thing I will mention is that with blush, so generally I use it across my cheekbone as a shaper and colour, but if I'm using a contour already, I'll only use it at the front of my cheeks. I mean, blush placement completely depends on your face shape, it's different for everybody, but I think it's the most natural and the most flattering to only put it on the apples of my cheeks at the front if I've already got something that's doing that face shape along the cheekbone. I find that if I have a shade and then a colour and then a highlight, it's just too much. So if I've got a bit of bronzer or contour back here, I'll keep the blush at the front, just for a little bit of warmth, but not for the shape. Hope that's not confusing. I think I'm going to keep it at that today to keep it really simple. Hopefully that wasn't confusing. If you do have any questions about how to particularly use any of these products, please leave the questions below. I'll be happy to unconfuse you, or at least try. My advice would be just to try them out. I did a lot of swatches before I bought any contour or any highlight because I wanted to make sure that it suited my skin, and I think that's really important. That's something I would stress more than anything. If you're gonna do it right. Knowing your undertones will help not only in this area but also with foundations and concealer as well, of course, so I would recommend that. Be mindful of how shimmery it is, whether it's bronzer or highlighter. Some faces don't agree with shimmer depending on your texture, so keep that in mind. That's all I've got to share really about face shaping products. I hope you found this helpful. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or contact me on social media. Otherwise, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.